Okay, today we're going to talk about transformations of functions. A function is transformed when the basic function, the parent function, just like that we have on the board next to my desk, all the parent functions that we went over the other day, is changed to a different form. So it's going to move it amongst the coordinate plane. That's a transformation. We have our parent functions. So we talked about our parent functions, and we had a graph of each of them put on our word board. Quadratic means that your x is going to be squared. That's the parent function. Absolute value has these two lines right here next to the x. Square root has the radical symbol. Cubic is going to be to the third power. Okay? So the function, when we write it in its expanded form, or we transform it, is going to take on this perception. You're going to have an a, which is going to be in front. Notice here's the x, just like the x here, and it's squared, so that means it's quadratic. You're going to have an h, and you're going to have a k. Each one of these, as we move them, are moved by those possibilities. So if we transform something by a, h, and k value, if you change the a, and notice that you can go back if you need to, make sure you write those down. If you change the a, if your a is negative, it's going to reflect it over the x-axis. If your a is greater than 1, it's going to stretch it, make it larger. If it is greater than 0 but less than 1, it's going to compress it, make it smaller. If your h is positive, so going back to look, let's look at just the quadratic. Right here would be our h. If this is positive, it's going to move it to the left. That's kind of different. Positive is going to the left. If it's negative, it's going to shift it to the right. Okay? Your k, if it's positive, it's going to shift it up. And if it's negative, it's going to shift it down. Make sure you pause this video and write this in your notes. So let's look at this first example. So we're going to look at this first example. If we take f of x, and it is the absolute value function x, that's our parent function. Now we've got to look at what we're doing to it. So we are changing it to a new function, g of x, and it's the absolute value of x plus 1. So it is the absolute value function. And then what changes? Our a, our h, or our k? Our h. It's a positive 1. Remember, when the h is changed, it goes to the opposite. So it's going to shift it to the left. And the number tells you how many units. So it's going to shift it 1 unit. Let's look at another one. Alright, so we are talking about a square root function. Notice the radical there. So it's the square root function. And then what changed? It was our k. It's not in parentheses, so it's not the h. The h is in the parentheses. It's the k value. And it says plus 2. So that means it's going to move it up 2 units. to go from the parent function to the function g of x of being the square root of x plus 2, you're going to shift it up 2 units. Let's go to another example. F of x equals x squared, and we're going to move that to the function g of x, which is 3x plus 4 squared. First off, we look at the x squared. X squared means that it's going to be quadratic. Okay, and then what changed? What is different about this function than this one? So we have the x squared. We have the x squared here. What is different? We have an a value and we have an h value. Notice there's nothing here for our k value. So the a is going to mean that it's going to change it vertically. It's going to make it larger or smaller. If the a is greater than 1, it's going to stretch it. It's going to make it larger. So it's vertically stretched. By a factor of 3. So you're just going to put what that number is. And then what changes with our h? Remember, our h is opposite of what we think. So if it's positive, it's not going to go to the right, but it's going to shift to the left. Let's do another example. F of x, absolute value of x, that being our parent function, we are going to transform it to the function g of x, absolute value of x minus 5 plus 6. So let's see what happened. We know it's the absolute value function. And what changed? Well, we don't have an a because a is in the front. We have an h and we have a k. H is what is within next to the x, so it's going to be within the absolute value. The h is negative 5. Remember, that's opposite, so it's going to shift it to the right 5 units. And then we have the k. The k is what's out here by itself. It's positive, so it's going to shift it up 6 units. And we have quite a few examples for you to get the hang of this. Let's do another one. So we have the function f of x equals the square root of x. And we are going to take that to the function, move it to the function g of x equals 4 and the square root of x plus 1. So we know that it's the square root function. And what do we have? What has changed? Well, what's outside to the front is the a, and what is within it is the h. Again, for this one, we don't have anything out here to its own, so we don't have a k. A, that's going to make it larger or smaller. So it is going to vertically stretch by a factor of 4. And then our h, remember that's kind of opposite, says plus 1. So you would think of 1 plus 1 going to the right, but because it's the h, that means it's going to move left by 1. Let's do another example. We have f of x equals x squared. So what kind of function is that? Right, it's the quadratic function. And we're going to move that to the function g of x equals x minus 7 squared plus 1. So let's look at this. If it's in front, that would be our a. There's nothing there. This right here is our h. This is our k. So what values did we change when we moved this function? We changed the h. That's going to be the opposite. So negative 7 or minus 7 makes you think to the left, but it's really going to move it to the right 7 units. And then k moves it up and down. It's negative 1, so the k is going to move it down 1 unit. Let's do one more. The function f of x is equal to x squared. What kind of function is that? Quadratic. And we're going to move it to the function g of x, which has got an a value, an h value, but there's no k value. So we only change the a and the h. The a changes it by a factor. So if it's negative, remember that reflected it. The a being negative reflected it right here. It had a 2, so it's going to stretch it. And then our h value is plus 3. Remember, h is going to be a little bit different. You think it's going to go to the right because it's positive, but it really moves it to the left. And that's the basics of moving a function or transforming a function. Next, you need to tune into the part 2 video.